There's a lot of intense moments in history that might be even disturbing, or maybe they were just, straight up weird, but let's look into it. Hi, my name is Jessa, and we're going to look at the top 10 disturbing events in European history. Number 10, the Great Stink of London. In the mid-19th century, London was undergoing rapid urbanization and industrialization, and the city's population was growing, and inadequate sanitation infrastructure led to widespread pollution in the River Thames. The hot summer weather exacerbated the problem. The combination of high temperatures and the stagnant polluted water of the Thames led to the release of foul odors that permeated the air. The Houses of Parliament situated along the banks of the Thames were directly affected by the stench, and the unbearable smell disrupted parliamentary proceedings, leading to debates about the urgent need for action. A civil engineer named Joseph Bazalgette was asked to address London's sewage dilemma, and so the Bazalgette sewer system was gradually implemented starting in the late 1850s. The system included intercepting sewers, main sewers, and outfall sewers. It significantly improved sanitation in London and helped eliminate the immediate threat of waterborne diseases. With its success, the Bazalgette sewer system was then used as a model for similar systems in other cities and contributed to significant improvements in public health. Thanks, Joseph. Number 9, Dancing Plague of 1518. On one day of July 1518, Frau Trovea became patient zero in a dancing phenomenon that claimed nearly 400 victims. Trovea danced silently and voluntarily by herself for more than a week as other citizens of Strasbourg began contracting the fatal disease. Local doctors even ordained the creation of stages and the presence of musicians in hopes of comforting the unfortunate victims. The physicians believed that if they allowed the dancing to continue, patients would ultimately dance the fever out of their bodies, and the hysteria lasted for 2 months and claimed countless victims to stroke, heart attack, or exhaustion before it subsided. Experts are still unclear as to what caused the plague. Hypotheses include the populist fear of Saint Vitus rats, as he was the patron saint of dances and dancers. The consumption of hallucinogenic mold that growed on rye bread and psychogenic disorders were also a possible cause. Number 8, leap year. Guys, if she wanted to, she would, but it would take her every 4 years to chance to ask you out for your hand in marriage. Yes, this is about the history of Ireland's leap year traditions. Looking back through ancient Irish history, it is said that the tradition began on 5th century Ireland when Saint Brigid of Kildare bitterly complained to St. Patrick that women had to wait for far too long for men to propose, and so this legend then became history. And so when in 1288 Scottish royalty passed a similar law, all women were able to ask for a man's hand in marriage on each February 29th. The day was also known as Bachelor's Day for this reason. You could only get out of it by paying one of the various fees, a kiss, a silk gown, and sometimes a pair of gloves or 12 silk gloves. As time went by, people all over Europe began to appreciate the practice, and the leap year tradition therefore became quite the rage. So much so that there are plenty of records of couples getting married because of it. But guys, if you don't want it, just get her 12 pairs of silk gloves. Number 7, the London beer flood. On October 17, 1814, the parish of St. Giles, London, the London Beer Flood, also known as the London Beer House Flood, occurred. The incident was a result of the rupture of a large vat containing a significant amount of beer, leading to a destructive and unusual flood. The brewery, also known for its large beer vats, one of which became the epicenter of the disaster. The vessel at the center of the incident was called for the Horseshoe Brewery's Great Beer Flood. It was a massive vat that held approximately 135,000 imperial gallons, over 600,000 liters of beer, and the vat had been hastily constructed using poor materials and weak supporting hoops. On the afternoon of October 17, 1814, one of the iron hoops securing the vat snapped, causing a chain reaction that led to the vat's collapse. The sudden rupture of the vat resulted in a massive release of beer that flooded the brewery premises and surrounding the streets. The torrent of beer destroyed buildings and trapped or drowned several people in the area. In the aftermath, a series of inquests were conducted to determine the cause of the incident and whether anyone was criminally liable. The brewery's owners were ultimately found not guilty of any wrongdoing. Number 6, the Vanishing Triangle. The Vanishing Triangle refers to a mysterious series of unsolved disappearances of young women that occurred in Ireland during the 1990s. The term primarily relates to a geographic area in Ireland where a number of women vanished under suspicious circumstances. While the disappearance shared certain similarities, the case remained unsolved, and the exact nature of any connection between them remains unclear. The cases share certain commonalities, including the age, gender of the victims, the fact that they were last seen in and around Dublin area, and the lack of resolution in each case. Many of the women were young and vanished without a trace. Each case remains unsolved, and despite extensive investigations, the fate of the missing women remain unknown. And the lack of conclusive evidence and the mysterious circumstances surrounding their disappearance have led to speculation and public interest. Number 5, the court-martial of the rat. There have been some insane rulers in European history, and a lot of them have some done really strange things. The top of the list is Russian Tsar Peter III. At the age of 25, he found that 2 of his toy soldiers had their heads chewed, and in a fit of rage, he caught the rat he thought was responsible and built a tiny gallows for it. A little guillotine ordered a military hearing stating that the rat had broke military law. The rat was then given a proper court-martial and sentenced to be hung by the neck until dead. Ironically enough, there was another court-martial of the rat during the Battle of the Somme. British soldiers discovered a rat in their trenches and they believed that it was aiding the enemy somehow. The soldiers suspected the rat was stealing and consuming their rations, and in the context of the harsh conditions of the trench warfare where the resources were scarce and survival was a daily challenge, the soldier decided to take the matters into their own hands, and the soldiers, frustrated by the perceived actions of the said rat, held an impromptu court-martial in the trenches. They accused the rat of theft and sabotage and conducted a mock trial. Witnesses were called and evidence related to the missing rations were present, and the trial concluded with the guilty verdict, and the rat was sentenced to death. The rat was then executed by firing squad, with the soldiers using their rifles to shoot the rodents. They had time that day. Number 4, the Berlin Airlift candy bombers. Yeah, the Berlin Airlift candy bombers refer to an interesting war thing of war showing, actually not war at all, but showing a humanitarian aspect of the Berlin Airlift, a pivotal event during the post-World War II era. The Berlin Airlift took place from June 1948 to September 1949 when the Soviet forces blockaded West Berlin, cutting off all land and water routes to the city. As we know, is a war crime. To sustain the citizens of West Berlin, the Western Allies initiated a massive airlift operations to transport food, coal, and other essentials by air. As part of this effort, American and British air crew flew cargo planes, and among the pilots were individuals who gained the fame as the Candy Bombers or Raisin Bombers. Originating from Lieutenant Gail Halvorsen, an American pilot, noticed a group of children watching the planes of Tempelhof Airport in Berlin. Wanting to connect with them, he offered them some chewing gum. Others saw this and initially approved the candy drops, and soon the effort expanded. Operation Little Vitals, or Vitalies, saw American and British pilots regularly dropping candy, gum, and small toys to the children of West Berlin during the airlift. Number 3, St. Brice Days. England in the early 11th century was characterized by conflicts between the Anglo-Saxons and the Danes, who had settled in various parts of the country. Tensions between the two groups were often fueled by political, economic, and cultural differences. King Aethelred issued an edict ordering the killing of Danes living in England. The motivation behind the edict is believed to be a combination of fear, xenophobia, and perceived threats from the Danish settlers. Spread and targeted Danish men, women, and children, and it is reported that many Danes were killed and their homes and settlements were attacked. The violence extended to multiple regions of England. The St. Brice Days massacre had long-term consequences, contributing to deteriorating relationships between the Anglo-Saxons and Danes. The Danish invasions and conflicts played a role in shaping the political landscapes of England during this period, and the St. Brice's Day massacre is a dark episode in English history. Reflecting the deep-seated animosities and conflicts between different ethnic and cultural groups, it is a stark example of how fear and mistrust can lead to acts of violence and reprisals. Number 2, the St. Bartholomew's Day. The St. Bartholomew's St. Bart's Day massacre, a series of targeted assassinations and mass killings that took place in Paris, France on August 23rd and 24th in 1572. The massacre marked a turning point in the religious conflicts between Catholics and Protestants during the French Wars of Religion, and the 16th century of France was marked by deep religious divisions between Catholics and Protestants. The conflict was exacerbated by political rivalries and power struggles within the French monarchy. The massacre was set in motion by the marriage of Margaret of Valois, yeah, I think that's her last name, a Catholic, to Henry of Navarre, later known as King Henry IV of France, a Protestant. The royal wedding was intended to reconcile the religious differences, but tensions remained high. On the night of August 23rd, 1572, violence erupted in Paris as Catholic mobs attacked Protestant homes, businesses, and individuals. Gaspard de Coligny was assassinated, and the killings quickly spread throughout the city. Then the St. Bartholomew Days massacre had a significant political consequences as it deepened the religious divide in France and led to resumptions of open hostilities in the French Wars of Religion. And finally, number 1, the Black Death. Caused by the bacterium called Yersinia pestis, it was carried by infected fleas that would often be found in rats. Because of the inhabitable conditions of lack of hygiene and constrained towns that grew in the population, the plague had easily spread, infecting and killing over 75 to 200 million people throughout all of Europe. If you were infected with the bubonic plague, you had a 70-80% chance of dying within the next week. In England, it was out of every 100 people. Around 35 to 40 could expect to die from the plague. Because of the plague, life expectancy at the time would be just under 20 years old. But how did this happen? How did we get so many rats, and how many people dying from this rampant disease? Well, in the years 1227 to 1241, roughly 100 years prior, Pope Gregory IX declared a war on cats. Pope Gregory truly believed that cats were tiny little satans running around because of some guy telling him during a confession that he swore he saw someone transform into a cat. And so there was a mass extermination of cats and those who were loyal to the church and the Pope. And because of this, the epidemic of the bubonic plague came in with aggression. Because of this, the epidemic of the bubonic plague came in with aggression, and since cats were known to eat infected rats, the rate of diseases spread like wildfire. As the population of cats decreased, the rats increased. Well, it's been weird and disturbing for sure, but just like in the Simpsons movie, as Homer once said, the more disturbing even in the European history so far. I don't know. He said something like that. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. My name is Jess, and I wish you all the best.